Alright, welcome back to the channel everyone. It has been a while since I've made a video and I wanted to do a season recap or a lessons learned video just to share my thoughts and I guess some of the learnings that I did or I had from this season and to help me I guess digest this season because it's been a long and exhausting one, let's be honest. I've got my man Dan from NBA Fantasy Bible. So how are you going today, Dan? Thank you very much for joining.
Absolute pleasure. Yeah, doing really well. Coming to the end of the season, one game day left. So super exciting to actually get into the real life playoffs. But yeah, can't wait.
Yeah, exactly. It's so funny when you play fantasy. You sometimes forget that there's an actual regular season going on because you get so caught up in the stats.
Exactly.
And yeah, I agree with you. So I think I might have asked you this in a previous chat, but yeah, who are you liking this season? Like top three. If you had to pick three teams that might win it all, who are you
Yeah, I think Boston are looking really solid. I think they're deep. And they're sitting all their guys. So they said all their guys yesterday, they're sitting all their guys for the final day as well. I think they're just resting up, ready to go full steam ahead. But I think they've got the pieces now to really be the actual contenders and really vie for that championship. But who have you got?
Yeah, look, Boston, on paper, and even if you look at the schedule, Boston looked amazing. I just think there's something up with the vibe of that team. I know that they made some big trades, so it might be the change this year, but considering they really had great opportunities, probably even better opportunities the last few years, I don't know if they're going to progress this year. But I actually like Denver. I picked them at the start of the year. I'm still picking them. I just think Jamal Murray and the consistency of that team is insane. I think they're beatable, but I just think the consistency, I don't think anyone can match them. And I think that over a 7-game series, they're still probably the team to beat. But it's easy picking last year's winner. But yeah, and other than that, I think my dark horse would probably be, I'm thinking like maybe Clippers. I just think they've also got a lot of playoff experience, and I think that they are really talented, and they're also inconsistent. But man, when their ceiling is a lot higher than a lot of other teams, in my opinion. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I would love to see OKC do really well. Just a young team, up and coming team, and I think they're truly contenders now. It would be good to see how they go. But yeah, Boston for me, just with Drew Holiday just spearheading that defense, and now Porzingis as well. I think they've just got the right
he
mix.
might be the gap.
Let's wait and see. Yeah.
Let's wait and see. All right, so we'll jump into this slides then. So I'm not sure why this is not working. Here we go. Oh, here we go. All right. So in today's video, I wanted to cover 4 separate topics. So the first one was what I learned or what we learned from this season. So I got a few things that I wanted to bring up, and there was so many. So there's definitely, so many things that I didn't learn. So I not didn't learn, but so many things that I could have spoken about. What surprised me, I think there was a lot of surprises each year. This season definitely had a lot more, in my opinion. What I do next year. So I guess things that I'm sort of leaning towards trying to implement next year, and just a little bit of a preview for some predictions for next season. So I'm just gonna discuss with Dan my top 5 picks for next year, but obviously this is really early predictions, considering there's going to be trades and all sorts. But I think the top 5 next year is going to be pretty set, in my opinion, for most people around the leagues. So what I learned, so I've got a list of dot points. So what I'll do is I'll just quickly talk through one, and Dan, I'll just get your opinion on all of them. So the first one is LBJ is not human. Do you see him continuing on this level of durability and consistency next year? Because every year I write him off and every year he proves me wrong.
Yeah, I wrote him off coming into this season. The under-over in terms of games played, around 55. I didn't think he was going to get anywhere near, and I think he smashed that out of the park this season.
Okay.
Almost 40 years old, which is unbelievable. His son Bronny he should be draft eligible shortly as well. So that's exciting. I think he'll maintain a lot of his output, but I don't think he'll get the games played like he did this season. But again, he's not human, as you said.
Yes.
Who knows what's going to happen.
He is, yeah, and his consistency this year was really good as well, in my opinion. Just looking back at his stats quickly, and I'll share this once I edit the video, but he played 70 games this year. If he plays against Pelicans, which is likely, he'll play 71. In the last 7 seasons, he's only played, close to that once. He had 82 in Cleveland. That was his last year, and ever since he's joined the Lakers, he had a 67-game season. Every other season has been under 60, so this is a massive surprise. It's not even a what I learned, it's a massive surprise. So I don't know whether I'll take him next year. I think I'll probably just stick with my I gotta take the odds, right? If he played 70 this year out of 6 seasons, it's the best. It's probably likely he won't play that many next year. But again, he's not human, so who knows? The next thing I learned, and it'll be interesting to get Dan's view on this or other people as well, but in deeper leagues, and this is my 14-team league, which I won, punting points really worked out for me. There was only 2 or 3 teams punting points, and it just made it so much easier to contest when there was injuries, and I had a lot of injuries. So do you have any deep leagues, Dan, and what was your strategy? And if it wasn't punting points, what do you think about that?
No deep leagues for me this season, but I've done it in the past. Yeah, punting generally is you have to do it to be able to be contending for that chip. But punting points is extremely effective, particularly as a lot of guys gravitate towards guys who will have a lot of high points. So there's going to be a lot of value in the draft, and also when you execute trades as well. When you're not that interested in getting points, but you're looking for those ancillary stats or the non-popcorn stats as well, I think it's extremely effective. So I love it there.
Yeah, it's a good insight as well, in the fact that you don't have to always pump points, but don't always have to target the points in the trades, but you can get the stocks and other efficiency categories that they bring as well. So it makes it easier, or I guess you have more available to trade with if you're punting points as well. So the next 2 dot points, injuries are unavoidable. I don't think we need to really comment about it. There's nothing we can do, but I think you just have to realize that you can draft the best team, the most available team, but someone may get injured. It's just how it is. It just seems to be getting worse every season. And player resting, it has become extremely difficult to navigate, especially trying to pick waiver wires. So, Dan, give us some tips on how you've been navigating player resting. Do you wait closer to the game time to take picks, or do you follow people on Twitter? Like, what is it that you do to minimize, and can you eliminate?
Yeah, it's a combination of that. I think you have to be able to follow beat writers and a few other accounts as well on Twitter, getting up-to-date status updates in terms of injuries. So you have to be on the ball in terms of your waiver wire pickups as well. Sometimes you can predict certain things like guys, for instance, Al Horford resting on back-to-backs. You know that that's going to happen at some stage. So there's always going to be that opportunity where you can predict something before it happens, and you can get some value there. But generally speaking, just try to follow as many beat writers on Twitter as possible, and some of those key Twitter accounts as well, and that's how you'll be able to navigate those waiver wire pickups.
Yeah, that's a good point, especially on those guys that that automatically get rested. Al Horford comes to mind immediately, even Porzingis to an extent towards the second half of the season. But there were more. Maybe I should do some review on which players that were for next season as well, because you got to take them into account when you're drafting them as well, in terms of their production, because they're only going to play X amount of games. Now,
and then further to your point, sorry, I was just going to say, player resting, it's particularly coming to a fore when it comes to some of those struggling or tanking teams as well. So we've seen it over the last couple of seasons with Trailblazers. We're seeing it right now. So not that you would go and necessarily avoid those guys when it comes to draft time, but just be mindful of the fact that if they do struggle again, and it's likely that will happen for the next couple of seasons, that this type of tanking or resting of guys at the back end of the season is going to happen again. And we've seen it happen with guys like Jeremy Grant. We're going to see it again in the future with a lot of these tanking teams as well. Particularly as not the upcoming draft, but the following draft is actually a very strong draft class. So the tanking is going to be even stronger next season.
Okay, so not the 24-25, but the 25-26. Is that the Cooper Flag one?
That's a Cooper Flag one. Yeah, there's a couple of guys that a lot of teams would love. They're going to be probably franchise cornerstone pieces for the future. So I think they're really going to tank hard for those guys. But
that is an excellent point. Yeah, that is I don't always review that as hard as I should. And Dan, you make a really good point there. Like, for the strong draft class, the incentive to tank is higher. Therefore, it may be in your best interest to either avoid picking up players from those tanking teams high, or even just avoiding them altogether, which I'm starting to think. Like, I had Anthony Simons this year. I just don't like anyone from Portland anymore. I don't care if they blow up every now and again. It's just the inconsistency is becoming impossible to handle, especially when you have a roster spot and you have them. You can't do anything with it. I'd rather have a crappy player that I know that I can drop, or someone who gets injured where I can at least use my IL plus spot. So yeah, very, very good points there, I think, to look at the future draft class and also realize that it's something that you can't always navigate. You just have to understand the environment. Moving on, so OG edit. So these 2 dot points are pretty much tied together. Dibs and Nick Nurse, they run their players into the ground. Play them. Man, they could play them 65 minutes a game if they wanted to. Honestly, they'd play them through timeouts. I swear to God. But yeah, this ties into, you got to remember, like, if they have injury-prone players, so OG and Embiid's perfect examples in the past. I think, unfortunately, in my opinion, these guys are all do not drafts anymore. They just can't. Even on regular minutes, they can't seem to maintain. And Dibs and Nurse, as I said, they run. And even your stronger guys like DiVincenzo and Brunson, Josh Hart, they'll get run as well. So just be wary of that, and maybe look into for any future trades that happen to those sorts of teams. Just be wary of who they're trading for. On the flip side, sorry to finish off as well, just remember that if you are the sort of person that thinks Embiid is going to play 40, 50 games in the next season, then maybe you want to pick Maxi high. You want to pick Oubre high. You want to pick Tobias Harris high. I'm just giving names because I don't know who's going to be there next year. Well, Maxi will be, but yeah, just some insight on those sorts of players. So I don't know if you want to share anything on that, Dan, or whether that's pretty clear cut as it is.
I think it's clear you've nailed it. Embiid cannot stay healthy, and we'll go through our top 5 picks later on, but I don't think we can trust Embiid in the top 5, even though per game, he's definitely a top 5 guy. No questions about it.
Yeah.
But when you look at total value, and then you just look at the time when he is injured, and even he is playing at the moment, but it's sporadic and he's not at his best, it comes and it counts in the playoffs, in your fantasy playoffs. And if he cannot stay healthy, or your guys cannot stay healthy when it really matters, then there's no real point in grabbing them so high. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and look, we can't guess all these. Sorry, you can't be 100% sure of all these things, but all you can do is use probabilities. And I think the more you put probabilities in your favor, it's unlikely that they're going to play. But then again, we'll look at the next slide, which is what surprised me, and we'll see some players like AD who completely smashed their games played in and were more than worth it. But again, you got to remember, you're picking these guys very well, maybe not OG, but Embiid, he's going in the top round, right? So you need to make sure at least two of your top 3 picks are pretty durable, because if you're not getting consistent playing time from them closer to the end of the finals, you're not winning. It's pretty much impossible to win, unless again you're punting points or something where you can get some random guy off the bench, off the waivers, who's got stocks. So we'll move on as well, talking about stocks. We've got steals. I was going for steals very heavily, so I followed the category quite close during the league, and it won me a lot as well. I was quite consistent in that. And I realized this year there was only 6 players that averaged 1.5 steals or more per game, and Caruso was the last guy that Paul George I think was 1.5, Caruso was 1.6. There was 2 guys at 1.7, and then there's 2 guys at 2, which was Fox and SGA. So I thought it was weird. Then I looked into the stats and I realized last season there was only 11 that averaged 1.5, so it was double that. And the season before there's 14. So I haven't looked past the 3 seasons, but man, that looks like it's downward trending, and I don't know why it would be. Maybe defense is less about gambling. But did you notice anything? And do you feel like steals were rare? Did you target it?
I did target it, but it's one of those categories that are always going to be variable. That and blocks. I guess blocks now, there are just a lot more guys that can provide you those elite blocks. It does diminish the value of those guys like Miles Turner, JJJ. And then it does boost the value of guys that do get those 1.5 steals. Even Donovan Mitchell, we've seen really catapult himself into the first round this season in terms of overall value, just because of his steal rate as well. So it's one of those that are, even though it's variable, it's something that you should be targeting as well. When you can get these elite steals guys off the waiver wire, like a Caruso, you're going to do well.
Yeah, very good point. And I'm going to do, as part of my draft prep, I'm going to be doing a lot of analysis on, not that much analysis, but I guess a review on total stats on especially the stocks, because I think they are the winners that people don't target. People mainly look for points and all the sexy stats, which and even efficiency as well to an extent gets looked at probably more than stocks sometimes. So I'll probably do a video on that around, as Dan mentioned, how many people are getting blocks and steals, and is it actually becoming a overvalued category where too many people are getting it, therefore it's not as, those players that you normally draft like a Kessler round 3 who only gives you blocks, he's not as useful anymore. So when you look at things in context of the total stats, sometimes you can get a better picture. So I think that's something that's worth reviewing for those guys as well, that think that could be a way to separate themselves from the league. Drafting and trading for playoff schedules isn't worth it. Yeah, I just see this talked about a lot. I used to do it when I was a bit earlier on, but I don't do it. Do you bother with this anymore, Dan?
I don't bother with it anymore. I think if it's borderline,
or at all,
maybe you look at it if it's borderline. And I guess Dallas, I know they struggled with some of their playoff schedules in the fantasy season. 2 game weeks. You would consider it, but then again, there are guys that are being rested left, right, and center. So at the end of the day, it probably does even up, but it's still something worth considering if you are borderline on one player versus another.
Correct. Yeah. Playoffs have to start. So this is my subjective opinion, but in my opinion, playoffs, you have to start them in week 18 and 19. I think it gets so silly by the end, and it just diminishes all your hard work on preparing and having a strong team, where you just get maximum sort of craziness. So, I mean, what's your thoughts here, Dan? I mean, I know you played one league that went all the way till the last week, and that was a 2-week matchup week, so that's probably why. But yeah. What's your preference, and share your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I do prefer for the season to be finished earlier, the fantasy season to be finished earlier. Yes, like you said, I am in one current matchup, so the grand final week or grand final fortnight, I should say, and it does make it really difficult, but also interesting at the same time. Just guys come out of the woodwork, and like Scottie Pippen Jr., who would have thought? But he's actually
Yeah.
been one of my saviors. Even yesterday, Kenneth Lofton Jr., he's just the
Yeah,
perennial
that
silly
game.
season
Looked
champion. Yeah, it's
He
quite
came from the G
unbelievable.
League too.
Came from the G League and he's starting for Utah, and this is just some crazy stuff. But it is frustrating if you have worked so hard, get into the playoffs, very strong team, then you have your rest guys, and then you've got these other guys coming out of the woodwork. It can be quite frustrating and it can sometimes lead to you losing your league as well. So there are
Yeah,
merits then in Roto, but I still like the advantage of a head-to-head or the fun of the head-to-head. But like you said,
it's always a bit
recommended that
more.
we finish a little bit earlier.
Yeah. And obviously it's subjective to your league, your commissioner, and things like that. But if you like to give everyone a shot till the very end, then obviously, pushing your league out further is going to help because even if a team is really stacked, the other team can pick up crazy gems like Lofton or whatever it is to still win. But if you want a more consistent league where it's based off, building up and, I guess having true player value, then it's best to start earlier. So again, very subjective, but I just thought I'd put that there because last year was 20, this year was 19. I'm probably going to go 18 next year as well in terms of starting. And the last two ones, these are just two players that caught my eye. I know there's so many more, and obviously I'll do videos on this for in anticipation for the next season, which I'm really excited for. But Maxi, I just think he's going to, in my opinion, he was probably fourth round or fifth round this year, probably fourth in most leagues, I'd say, and sometimes third. But in my opinion, he's second now. With Embiid not staying healthy, and I mean that Nick Nurse system around the PGs, he's just going to be. He gets better every year. So, and Duran, similar to him, he's only played 61 games this year, but I think he's going to be top three rebounder next year. He's starting to get close to 30 minutes, and they've shipped off a lot of their centers now, so I think that he's going to do well. So, yeah, just thoughts on those two, or even anyone else that's caught your eye, Dan, on next year who you think is going to take another sort of lead.
I think you've nailed it with Maxi. I think he's easy, probably mid-second round, to be honest. I think, like you said, Embiid unable to stay on the court at all times. I think that's helping Maxi. He's getting better each and every single season. Duran, top three rebounder, absolutely. I think he's probably going to go down. I know it's early days, but go down as one of Pistons' best rebounders, and you have had a
Really,
lot of good rebounders
Waller
over the time. But yeah, I think Duran's
and
an
Drummond.
absolute beast. But yeah, Drummond
Yeah.
as well. I think Duran's probably going to eclipse him in terms of overall skill level, but even as a rebounder, I think he's fantastic. In terms of next season, I think the JJ train, the Jalen Johnson train, I'm really excited. I was able to pick him up off the waiver wire. I think he's just going to go from strength to strength next season. But again, he's shown to be a little bit, I won't say fragile, but he's been off the court as well at key moments of the season. So
Ankles.
hopefully he can be a little bit more durable. But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens with him.
Interesting. Okay. Well, maybe we'll have to do another video and recap who we think is going to be breakout. Or not breakout, that's the wrong word. All these words, but just take, I guess, improvements next season. Any improvement is good. Even 3-4 PPG is very much appreciated, I think. So I think a lot of people are looking for that big breakout where they double or their points or double their rebounds. But that's hard to get. It is, especially nowadays when people seem to just not be committed to roster movements like coaches like they used to be. Okay, what surprised me? So these are I guess a lot of them are due to not due to but related to health. So AD's health, number one. I mean, he has played let's see, he played 70. Let me bring up his stats in the back end. But he played about
75 at the moment. Yeah, 75
that
games
is
played
insane. This
with
has
one to
gotta
come.
be-
Yeah.
So we'll look at 76. He's played 75 twice when he was at the Pelicans, and obviously he was a lot younger. He's now 30. He's going 31 next year, or this year, I guess. Played 75. You got to remember, in the last 5 seasons, including this one, he's played only 56 was his highest. Oh, actually, no. In the last 4, 56 was his highest. In the last 5, he had 62 in his first as a Pelican. So in the last 5 seasons, he's only played more than 61, so 62, and then he's played more than 71 to 75. So I guess he's probably a little bit more durable than I thought. But I guess a big question again, 70 is massive. Even 60 is great for AD. That immediately makes him late first round, early second round. Do you think he's going to get, let's forget 70 because I don't know if that's possible, but do you think he's going to get 60 next year? And what was the reason that he was suddenly so healthy?
I can't tell you. I cannot tell you as to why he was all of a sudden so
Something in that
healthy.
LA
He's
water.
always, well, potentially, but he's always been the locker room guy. And you see those updates on Twitter going, oh, he's off to the locker room again. We've seen a lot less of that as
Yeah.
well. Not just the games missed, but him
Yeah.
during games going to the locker room, whatever it may be. A lot of people say he has IBS. He needs to go to the toilet all the time. I don't know if that's true, but
What?
yeah,
I've
just,
never heard that.
that's just a rumor that I've heard before.
That
So
is
yeah, he had some
hilarious.
issues with his
His
toilet
bowels there, okay.
stuff, with his bowels.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's true, but I
Let's
don't know
dig
what
into
it
that
is.
rumor.
Yeah, not too deep, not too deep.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. But I don't know what it is with AD's health, but it's been a pleasant surprise. But again, I'm not betting the under or over. I'm not sure if he gets anywhere near 70 next season, but we'll sit back here 1 year from now and perhaps he does it again. And
Yeah.
maybe he's the main man and LeBron's probably going to trail off just a little bit. We know that he's not human, as we spoke about, but maybe AD does step up even further.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, very interesting to monitor. I might just review, I guess, his preseason quotes or whatever he said. I know he said he wanted to be defensive player of the year or something like that this year, or anchor of defense. He definitely did that. He's insane defensively. Like, I mean, if it wasn't for Wemby, he would be easily he'd be the Wemby of this year in terms of defensive stats for fantasy. But we'll have to see what happens. And and it's again going to be very subjective because these things just sometimes happen. Every now and again they play crazy seasons and then they have off. Talking about Lakers, Reeves, I just thought Reeves was amazing. He needs a mention, like 15 or 16 PPG in that stacked lineup where LeBron played a lot, AD played a lot because he averaged about 13 points last year. I know that was his breakout year, but he had a lot of help with injuries and rest, and he got a lot of minutes. But this year he did amazing, even with all the usage. So if LeBron goes or AD gets injured again or he does get injured next season, or D'Lo goes, man, you're looking at monster stats from Reeves. But anything to share there, and Reeves or anything in particular that I missed that may have made him very good this season?
I know coming into the season he was quite popular pickup. His ADP was probably around that 90 to 100 mark, just coming out of Team USA camp and the World Cup as well, and he looked tremendous at that World Cup. He's been a bit of a surprise to me. So 88th in the season in terms of per game, but has played every single game, which is unbelievable.
Yes.
And I think he'll end up playing all
Yes.
82. So
He
you
will,
look at that total games played, that total value, he's probably top 50. I haven't done the analysis, but I'd say he's a top 50 guy. And that's exactly what you need, even though he may not necessarily win you a league by himself. That's the type of league that will just, he will ground your team, and he will just really help you propel to that chip.
Yeah, and talk about durability as well, and that's a great stat. I didn't realize that 81 games for Reeves, and you brought up. I'd love to hear your analysis when you get around to it on durability, because a lot of guys, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter that it's like, who cares about durability? It's whatever, but I just think it's worth it because in the day, the season is long. You need players that are going to play. Even if they smash 1 week, it's the point when they don't play the next week, you lose automatically, and you lose badly. So durability is a stat, in my opinion, is something to consider, especially. And I also think consistency is great. Players like SGA and Sabonis, like where they're just always getting you 12, 13 rebounds or whatever it is. But anyway, that's a separate conversation, and we should definitely. I'm taking some notes to things that we could talk about on the off season.
A lot of mental notes right now. Yes.
Yeah, I'd love to get you got good sort of insights and perspectives. Now talking about durability, Wemby's durability. Will it? I can't believe how much he played. Like, do you think it's going to last? Was there anything you heard around injuries that may have scared you off him? Because I didn't hear anything.
71 games played. He won't be playing in the last game of the season, which is tomorrow, but very surprising. And I was thinking he's going to be gunning for the 65 games to be eligible for Rookie of the Year, which he easily got. But to get to 71, and there's been quotes from him saying that he wants to play all 82 next season, which we'll see again. We'll see what happens. I don't think...
Take that up.
Look, for me, he's still a top 2 pick, and I know that's quite lofty for some people. He's not a top 2 per game guy, but just given that upside, the excitement factor as well, he's fun to have. He'll win you a category by himself, which is extremely rare. People used to say that about Miles Turner with blocks, but that's no longer the case. But with Wemby, I think he actually can.
Yeah, he can.
It's just his all-round game is so exciting, but to hear him want to play every single game is extremely exciting for the future. I think, and I tweeted it earlier this morning, he's changed the landscape of fantasy basketball probably for the next decade. And guys, you mentioned him earlier, Cooper Flagg, he may be similar. He's not going to be Wemby level, but these guys are just going to be excitement machines and want to play I'm just hoping that San Antonio don't, as we talked about earlier in the show, they don't look at tanking really strongly, and then that would impact Wemby's games played next season.
Yeah.
But if he wants to play 82, I think he's probably, as I think he's still a teenager, as a teenager, probably has a bit of pull at the Spurs organization. If he wants to play all 82, they might back it off a few games, but playing
Yeah, he'll
70
get
again is
close.
probably
Yep.
not out
Oh.
of the reasoning.
Yes, I very much agree, and I think if you get 70 out of your top players, you are pretty much definitely, you're pretty likely to go into playoffs and probably
Absolutely.
finish top 4 or something,
Yeah.
which is very important. So yeah, I definitely agree with you on all those points. I've never heard the 82 game quote thing on wanting to play that, but that makes that, in my opinion, that already boosts him up a lot more. And I will say as well, you talked about the Spurs tanking, things like that. For the fact that he played even 71 and he had that mid-season sort of like where they were talking about resting him on back-to-backs or playing him less, and all of a sudden that stopped. I think it shows that he has some pull. I've got no proof of that because obviously there's inside conversations, but the fact that that happened and then that stopped, I think that he's basically going to demand. He knows his power, he knows his presence, and he knows that he can get what he wants. And I think he also is not an idiot. He knows his body. So yeah, very high on Wemby. I think he's a winner in all sorts of ways, and he wants to win as well. And to do that, he needs to prove to the league. So yeah, looking very high on him next year. And talking about
Also,
top rookie,
I don't think Adam Silver can go to the Spurs, but perhaps NBA have gone to Pop and the Spurs and said, this guy is the face of the NBA for the next 10, 15
conspiracy
years.
talk. Yeah. No. I agree with you, man. I mean, these are all dark routes, but I definitely think the NBA, at the end of the day, it's a business. We all got to understand that. To what extent they pull strings, we'll say, or whatever it is, I don't know, but I think they have some influence. I think that's just the lay of the land in any business, and I could see that being one as well. So yeah, so that's another good point. You're pulling all sorts of points. It's hard to see that he's not playing 70 anymore after talking to you. But talking about rookies, just moving on in the list here, I just thought a lot of them did great, especially the top 5. So you got Eamon, Oso is actually part of it because he was top 5 as well. But Eamon, Wemby, Miller, they all played great. Eamon took a little bit of time to come together. Miller went berserk after LaMelo, and he didn't stop even with LaMelo after that. I think he was a great pick at number 2. But yeah, I've never seen production of the top 5s. That's really surprised me. And I don't have the stats off the top of my head, but if you look at the top 5 stats of every rookie, top 5 rookies for the last few seasons, I don't think they produced as well as the guys from this season. Even if you take Wemby out alone, Scoot was number 2, what we're talking about. But Scoot, outside Scoot, like, they did well. So yeah, in your opinion, do top 5 rookies always do this well? Because I don't remember them ever doing this well for so long.
I haven't got the numbers in front of me, but there's such a strong draft class, and I think you can extend it out beyond the top 5. And you look at the top 10, even 15 guys, and it's just such a strong draft class this season. Won't be as strong next season, but again, the season after that, as we alluded to, is going to be strong once again. But yeah, it's been a tremendous draft class. Don't forget Chet. I know technically this wasn't his first season, but it's his rookie year as well. So
yeah,
rookie class, unbelievable this season. Yeah.
Yeah, this was honestly, I think, guys, like, I've played fantasy for about 10 plus years now. I've never seen such production and such influence. Like, you're talking about rookie guys or first year guys, if we include Chet, pretty much producing top 3 values. So many of them, especially like guys like Eamon as well. Like, he had stretches where he was just rebounding like a madman, and he wasn't top 3 in terms of total value, but he's really productive. So I just don't expect that next season. I don't know the draft class that well, but I don't expect that. This was very I guess uncanny.
Yeah.
Going back to health, Clippers. So Kawhi, he played great. I can't remember I think he had 67. Let me bring that up. And PG as well. They both had great games. I think he had 50, 57. What did he have this year? He had 68 this year. So in the last 5 or 6 seasons, he's only played 60 once, and that was in Toronto. And then every other season, he's at 57, 52, 50, and then he didn't play one of those seasons as well. And PG is very similar. He's only had one season with 56 plus games in the last 5. So again, I don't know what it is in LA. How is it? Is AD, LeBron, PG, Kawhi now? Like, what the hell is going on in LA? And again, if you move to the Clippers side, do you think this is going to continue? Because, I mean, probability shows that it won't. But is there something I'm missing?
I think bringing in Harden was probably one of the big impetuses for Kawhi and PG. I think it took the pressure off, the usage off, less wear and tear on him. He was still missing some games for maintenance. But
Yep.
I think it's also they've come to the point they've traded for these guys, and if they don't get success in the next one, probably in the next 2 seasons, I think they have to disband this team as well. So I think they're just trying to get that synergy with all the guys. And remember when Harden first got traded, they looked garbage. They went on such a
This
losing
first five,
streak, but
six
then
games, yeah.
oh, it was
Westbrook moved to
crazy.
the
And then
bench, and then it all went.
yeah, a lot of people out for blood, and the Clippers won't be making playoffs. What an absolute flop. But they're looking good, and I think they went on a massive winning streak as well. And like I think we spoke about it earlier, dark horses for the playoffs as well. And if they're all healthy, and Kawhi has missed the last few, but if they're all healthy, they're going to be a massive threat.
Yeah, okay, that's a very good point. Yeah, that less ball handling and obviously it equals less wear and tear as well, and maybe they were just able to manage them a bit better. So we'll see. I like Kawhi a lot more in terms of health than PG. I think PG has really bad stretches, and then he'll just he's more likely to have those 40-50 type seasons. Whereas Kawhi's sort of like he's managed. I think he knows his body well. He's probably going to get at least 50 games next season. So I was quite surprised as well in my little sub-dot point there. His production, despite Harden, it was great. It was like 21 points, 6 rebounds, 1.6 steals. He's great, and I'm looking to pick him up next year around third round. Like I think he dropped to around third or fourth round this year, but I think I'm going to. I think he's carved out his role. He knows what he wants, and we'll see what happens. Speaking of production as well with trades, Dame's production 24 points from 31. I understand he's sharing the ball with Giannis, but that is a massive drop off. Only 3.1 threes compared to 4.2 last year. What was the reason for the downfall, and does it continue next year?
You said it, it's Giannis, and we knew that his production in terms of points output would diminish next to Giannis, and Giannis is the alpha of that team. Dame is his Robin to the Batman. But you say that, and a lot of people are saying that he was a flop or he was a wasted pick. He was probably going around that end of first round, maybe 12 to 14 pick. You look at his per game value this season, it's end of the second round. So yes, it's not as good as where you liked it to be, but it's not an absolute wasted pick. And he's actually been really good in recent months as well. So yes, we could see it coming a mile away, and I was very hesitant to take him around that first round. And I think it does continue next season as well. I don't have any stocks of Dame. So I was hesitant, and I went for, I would hate to say, in one of my leagues, I went LaMelo over him, and that turned out to be even worse. But then, on paper, you would think that LaMelo, if he could stay healthy, and just been talking about health, you would think that his stats is just fantastic. But yeah, he just can't stay healthy either. So that's another one to consider for next season.
Yeah, definitely LaMelo with his ankles. It's 3 seasons now, and he seems to have done it every season. And Charlotte just seems to basically tank every season, so they don't even have any incentive to bring him back. But yeah, very sad because when he does play, he looks like he's actually gets better each year. But you brought up a good point again. Availability and durability is such an amazing stat. And if you look at Dame, whether he only got you 24 points and 7 assists with 3 threes, which is actually pretty crazy when you think about it, and we're talking him down, he still did play 70 plus games, and he's always been fairly durable. So I think he's only going to go up. I personally think that he will slightly improve. I think you're looking at maybe 27. There was a little bit of talk as well about, during the start of the mid-season, like you also remember they had a coaching change, but I remember a lot of quotes from him saying he was not comfortable in Milwaukee, not as a team, even as a city, just living there. So maybe it's just overall he's had a move. I think he's had some issues with his divorce as well and stuff like that. So maybe there's some personal stuff going on, but this guy's proven, man. I cannot see him going 24. And I don't think he's probably end of first round anymore. He's probably he's definitely still early to mid second round in my opinion. I just he's just like 12 seasons straight of just beasting. He's not just going to suddenly not beast just because Giannis is there. So but we'll see what happens. I love past experience is an indicator of future experience, which is what all those financial service ads say not to do. But I think with NBA and guys like this, Dame, you got to think that they'll bounce back.
Well, a quick one for you then.
Yeah.
Dame versus, and we spoke about him earlier, Dame versus Maxey. Who are you taking first?
Oh, that's hard. I would probably go Maxey only because he's got more of the reins without him. Oh, you know what? That actually is hard. That's actually really hard. I'd probably go Maxey just because the field goal is great with Maxey, and I think that even though he's a little bit more injury prone, from the past few seasons, and that Nick Nurse, Maxey, I think only just. But I would be happy with either. Yeah, I think though, if you go in assists, you got to go Dame because I think he's still going to give you the 7 maxis. I think he's at 5.9 or 6 or something. I think that's his. He's not a point guard. Yeah, I know Nick Nurse is trying to get him, but he's not a point guard. He's a combo guard. Yeah, and I think Lowry has really helped him with his scoring. So I think if you want assists, you got to go Lillard. And it's only a bit. It's only 1 or 1.5 extra assists, but I think everything else is maxi because he's all round. Yeah, talking about production as well. We have, and I apologize, guys. This is probably not meant to be as long, but these are complex topics. I guess you could talk about them for a very long time. So I appreciate if you're still sticking with us watching this video. I know we do short form content, Dan, so this one's a bit of a long one for me, but it's been enjoyable. I got to be honest. I could chat fantasy with you all day.
Yeah, likewise, absolutely.
But Bogdanovic in Atlanta. So you have a stacked team there. You had you had who else? You had Jalen Johnson come up, and yet somehow he has produced probably his best season in Atlanta. So 17 points. You're looking at 1.2 steals, and how many threes? I think they had quite a few for threes. He was at three threes a game, and he shot 43%. So that was probably his worst shooting percentage as well from field goal. So he played 78 games, which is massive for him. He's only played that in his first season. Every other season, or he played 70 in his second, and every other season was around 60 or below. So again, will he continue this, and why? Again, with all this other players, is it again maybe that Clippers factor? He's got less pressure to handle the ball and wear and tear. Like, yeah.
Well, he was in. I think he's still in contention. I don't think he'll win it, but contention for the Sixth Man of the Year award, coming off the bench for the Hawks, coming in behind DeJounte and Trae Young, but then getting some starts particularly when Trae Young was sidelined for quite some time as well. So, yeah, his production has always been quite consistent, whether or not he's coming off the bench or starting as well. So he's been really good, and we know that what you get with him, he can facilitate at times. He's a great three-point shooter. He can get you those points as well, and sneaky with some steals. It hasn't been a surprise, but then again, it's been a pleasant experience if you did happen to pick him up. And I think a lot of people grabbed him off the waivers as well, or maybe as a last round pick.
They did, yeah. I was an idiot. I drafted him. No, I didn't draft. I think I picked him up first week, but then I dropped him after that. I don't know why. There was so many. First few weeks is hard. There's just so many people you want to grab. But I didn't. For me, it was dropping because of his Jalen Johnson's ascension, and again that injury, history injury. But it's just this year was such a weird season. So many guys that were just they'd go 4 or 5 seasons with horrible health, and then suddenly all of a sudden they're playing 78. It's just. And on top of that, he played in the Olympics, so he has even more mileage on his body. You think that there was more of a likelihood that he would break down. But yeah, I don't know. It's again, we had it in the other slide. You can't pick these injuries anymore. It's getting really, really difficult.
And I guess for next season, and we talked about some of these guys continuing on next season. It's hard to predict with Bogey, just because I've got a feeling that Atlanta. We've talked about it probably for the last 2 seasons. Atlanta need to make some moves. And there's a lot of talk around whether they move. I think they're going to split Trae and Trae and DeJounte, and I think they'll retain only one of those guys. And does that propel Bogey into the starting lineup? A lot of stuff to happen in the off season as well. Even at center, Capella versus Okongwu. Does Capella finally get shipped? Yeah, it's been a strange one. I thought at trade deadline, this is it. This is the time, and it never eventuated. So a lot to consider before draft season.
Yeah, and I've started to realize as well around trading. This is a very good point with Atlanta. I think that they're one of the teams that have a high potential for moves. But again, as you said, that the last 2 seasons they've been like that. But I think teams are less likely to do major moves around the trade deadline. It seems the last few seasons it's getting smaller and smaller chance of like big moves, and the off season is likely where the moves happen. So I think the off season is likely, and nowadays trade deadlines, I don't bother trading for players or hoping that my player is going to get moved, even if there's a big rumor, because it's just it seems the big ones are not really happening as much.
I did a trade deadline show, got up ridiculous hours, and felt what an anticlimactic experience that was.
This one was boring.
It was very boring. So I like your point. I think most of the moves, if they're going to happen, will happen in the off season.
But maybe we got short-term memory, because I don't know. I remember last season as well, I stayed up and it was not many moves. Like Andre Drummond was one of the better moves, and I think Porzingis was a move. But yeah, I think got to do some research on that, because I don't know whether it's just short-term memory in the last 2 seasons or whether it's been sort of trending again downwards for this trade deadline, big moves at trade deadline. Because I could definitely agree with you on this year. I think everyone was like stunned about how many players like Drummond didn't get traded, where it's just like it just seems so obvious to the rest of us. So we'll move on. Memphis depth, how will it integrate next year? So we know all the pieces are coming back, but they've had some amazing, stats from players like Scottie Pippen Jr., Gigi Jackson, Jake Laravia, and also Vince Williams Jr. These guys are putting up great numbers, a lot of them. Will any of them be there to contribute consistently next season? In my opinion, no. But I was surprised by how great they were. That's all. So what's your opinion there?
Yeah, it's tough to know. I sent out a tweet as well, just asking about Scottie Pippen Jr. Does he make the rotation? I'm not so sure. They've got a lot of guys to come back. You think of obviously Jar, JJJ, who's been quite consistent this season. Marcus
Desmond
Smart
Bane.
as well. Desmond Bain. Brandon Clark has just returned to the lineup, and he played a few games
Forgot
as
about
well
him,
after that.
yes.
Yeah, so he'll get some good minutes. I think he'll still come off the bench. So lots to happen. I don't know what's going to happen with that rotation as well, but yeah, there's a lot of depth, which is gonna be interesting for next season.
Yeah, definitely something to look out on because, at the end of the day, depth still is something to factor. You may not want to draft these guys, but I think in terms of where players are rested on back-to-backs or there's injuries, that's where it may be important to see who's getting the first minutes off the bench and are they performing consistently. But definitely something to look at next season. And the last thing as well, CJ McCollum's free throws and 3-pointers. So they were really good. I mean, he shot 83% this year, and he's generally like in the 70s. And he also shot 3.6 threes this year on 42%, I think. And that is a lot higher. So that really surprised me. I don't know what it was because he was doing this even without Brandon Ingram. Now Ingram's been out for a couple of weeks and he's been doing even better. But I don't know, again, whether this is a one-off or not because there's been so many big seasons. I would say it's probably more of a one-off. Maybe he's just found a way to improve over the offseason. So definitely something to monitor. But yeah, I don't know if you own CJ, but did you notice that? And again, was there anything that was missing that he improved or did something during the offseason to improve his three-point percentage?
Yeah, he was a really good shooter from the free throw line when he was in Portland, and then he had a couple of seasons where he was less than 80. I was like, where did this come from? It's quite
Okay, all
unusual.
right.
And then he's now returned back to where he was for quite
The
some time.
80s.
The 3 points coming back, that could be. I don't know if this is the fact. I haven't done the analysis on this, but there's been more point Zion and more point Ingram, and maybe just some of the facilitation out of CJ McCollum's hands and just focus on getting spot up shots and being
Yes.
open for those 3-pointers. Perhaps there's some correlation there. I haven't done the analysis on that, like I said, but perhaps that could be a reason.
That's a very good point. Okay, I'm not familiar with where how his usage is, but that team is stacked and they can get a lot of usage from different guys. So very good point. I think he's also another great sneaky guy. Like he goes under the radar. He normally goes around pick 5 or 6, but man, I mean he gets like 20 points, 4.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists. You're looking at a lot. The 3.6 threes this year was crazy, and now with the shooting percentage and the low TOs of only 1.6 this year, he's been, I don't know where he ranks. He must be at least third round. That is very efficient, and he played 65 games this year, and he played 75 last year, and he generally plays around, like he had 2 or 3 seasons where he was only playing low games, and I think that was due to some one-off injuries, but I think that he's moved up a lot higher, and I'm going to be targeting him next year. I think he's sort of under the radar players. That I
Yeah,
think
and
will
you're right.
perform.
He is a third rounder. He's 36th per Basketball Monster, looking at that per game
There you go.
numbers as well. So there you go. Yeah, much improved season this year. Let's see. And I do happen to have him in one of my teams, my current team that's playing for the chip as of tomorrow. So yeah, he's been awesome. Yeah, it's been wonderful to have him on my team.
Okay. All right, guys. So definitely look up for CJ next year, especially if Ingram doesn't get extended or he's looking for that massive contract, but he somehow moves. Ingram is going to continue, even if Trey Murphy's ascension starts. They have such a stacked team. It's crazy. So let's move on. Lessons for next year. So again, this is just my opinions. Dan, I would love for you to add your thoughts. We'll sort of go through these as a group. But starting playoffs, we talked about this. It's very subjective, but in my opinion, you got 18 or 19 is probably the maximum. Understanding your roster may take 1 to 2 months to take shape. This is very interesting. I found that in one of my leagues, I was trying to rush to get a build that didn't work. And because I drafted for a particular build and I was trying to rush players to get that, and I sort of overtraded some and also didn't allow my roster to take shape. And so, for example, what I mean by that is like certain players that I picked off the wire, like Cam Thomas, were contributing a lot more than I thought. And as a result, I was over heavy in some categories, trying to, instead of waiting for my roster to settle, trying to predict what they would do. So what is your approach to that? I think that's really interesting. Like maybe that's how my mind works. But do you let yourself your roster settle? Do you start chucking out trades as soon as you see players that you can get on a cheaper basis?
I look for opportunities to trade where possible, but I do like to hold on a guy that I'm high on coming into the season. And if it does take a bit of time, I will give it 3 to 4 weeks. And I did it this season as well. I think I was 1-4 the first 5 weeks of my current season that I'm actually going to win, hopefully, come this time
What a
tomorrow.
comeback.
So yeah, good comeback. So a little bit of patience there, and that helped. I was able to pick up guys quite quickly. Around that time when Jalen Johnson was looking like he was going to be a great pickup, I needed to hop on that. So even though I've said be patient, you also need to be flexible and agile enough to understand, okay, this guy's not going to get enough run, but let's make a play on this other guy that I can see a pathway to value there as well. So be
Yep.
patient on guys that you've drafted in the mid tiers or even the higher tiers. Don't throw away trades just because of a reaction to a couple of poor games, but then be able to be flexible and agile enough to pick up these hot guys off the waiver wire. And I think that's key. I think that's key to building success.
So basically, it's be patient, but also be ready to pounce on anyone. Which
Be
is
patient with your top and mid picks, top and
Yes,
mid picks,
and
but
the end.
then be able to be agile on some of those last two guys as well. So
Yep.
yeah, be patient on your higher picks because you've picked them for a reason. But
Yep.
then just scoop where possible and just get rid of those. I won't say deadwood, but pretty much
guys.
deadwood end of bench guys
Yep.
as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it's very subjective again. It's how everyone's mind is different, right? It's like same as like I guess if you trade in the stocks or anything like that, some people are long term traders, some people are short term traders, but some people are investors and they just like to hold things long term through bad patches. So I guess you have to figure out your personality, but definitely stick with it. Just don't panic is the main thing. But I think like in terms of builds, all I can say from this season is give your team a chance to build, and just because you've drafted a particular build doesn't mean you can't be flexible in some of those categories you're targeting, because it becomes easier to do that if you have the right players, as opposed to trying to force a build where you don't have the right players and you're trying to continuously trade for them.
And because you have gone into a certain punt build, it doesn't mean you can't pick up a guy that is hot on the
Yes,
waiver wire as well.
I suffer
Because
from that sometimes.
yeah, you go, look, that guy is really strong in field goals, and I'm punting field goals. It doesn't matter. Pick him up, and there's some trade value there as well. And
Yes.
perhaps with a few other moves, your build actually may take shape a different way as well. So just be agile enough with some of those last round picks as well.
Yep, that's a very good point. Yeah, that's a mistake that I sometimes make. And we're talking about guys who are end of bench guys, so it's not going to kill you, but it's all these little things add up. So yeah, hold on to prove players through bad spells. This was another thing that I realized. So there was a few guys like this, like Clay Thompson. Cam Thompson was one guy I had. Like he had a horrible stretch where he was like, I think he was like 0 from like 20 or something, or 1 from 20 for like 2 games, and he just had this horrible stretch. It was about 8 games where he's just absolutely destroying my field goal. But whatever reason he came back. But these sort of players, especially guys like Clay Thompson, where they're proven, man, in the past. If they're contributing to your build and in a bad patch, just realize that these guys are proven, that they'll find a way to work it out. And as long as they've shown you a history of that, in my opinion, don't be so quick to either drop them or trade them or something like that, because you may miss out on future benefits going forward. So Cam Thomas is one of the best examples. I feel like there was a lot more, but do you feel me on this, Dan? And do you have any examples as well where you held someone through a bad spell?
I held Clay for quite some time, but then I'm gonna go against your point here. I won't go
Okay.
against it. I like holding proven players, but then I've been able to drop Clay, and I haven't turned back. And he's put in some good performances. I have never been big on Cam Thomas either, so I am comfortable with dropping some of these guys that perhaps don't have that real top tier upside. And just because you go, okay, I've missed out on a potential top 80 guy, it's okay, because there's always opportunity on the waiver wire in some of those standard leagues, less so for a deeper league. So perhaps where you're
Yeah.
coming from there,
Yeah.
from a 14 or a deeper league, that's where you need to just hold a little bit longer than you would in a standard or a shallower league.
Yeah. Okay, that's a very good point. If you're in a 12 or under, I think you can be a lot more risky and a lot more, flexible, because if you drop one guy, there's always some other guy on the waiver wire that's going to improve at least for a while. But in the deeper leagues, that's where you have to be a little bit more conservative, I think. But again, it comes down to your build and also your personality as a manager as well. But I just think like don't be hasty, and if they've proven in the past, I think they can find a way out of it. So selling high as well, I find this very easy to do. So I made a lot of trades in the start of the season in one of my leagues, and I just found it was very easy. Managers were a lot more in a panic. And I don't know whether you feel the same way, but did you do a lot of trades, and did you find them that it was easy to do at the start of the season versus even just after 1 month or 2 months in, when players had established themselves, and a lot of managers are like didn't want to trade anyone because you know what they're like. Once some guy has a hot spell, they think they're going to continue that for the next 17 million years. So
Yeah.
yeah, what's your experience there? Because I find it very
Absolutely.
easy at the start.
Absolutely. Start of the season is probably the most volatile time for other managers, and that's the time that you can actually sell high, but also buy low as well. Great opportunity. So yeah, wonderful tip there.
Yeah, okay. And again, it's all subjective. All this you got to predict, and that's the best part of it. It's your prediction versus their prediction on whether you're buying low or selling high or whatever it is.
And a lot of managers don't understand the nuances as well. Maybe one guy is performing really well because another guy is out. A lot of managers don't stay up to date. I know guys that
There's
follow
a lot,
this
yeah.
channel would always stay up to date, of course. But there's a lot of managers in your league that will not be there. And so that's selling high and buying low is very, very important, particularly as you said at the start of the season.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Like, I mean, even all the people on YouTube or whatever that you follow on Twitter, no one has it all. It's just so many different perspectives and so many different things. Like, Dan, you brought up the Zion playing point forward, and that's maybe helping CJ become a little bit more of a shooter. I'm not saying that was the reason, but it's all these little insights. Like, no one has all of them. It's just impossible. So that's why it's like, be confident, be faithful in what your predictions, because you may know something that someone else doesn't know, even if it's minor. And I think don't ever do things out of haste, but do things out of your confidence. Even if they don't pay out, doesn't matter. You got to follow your predictions, because that's the fun part, number one, and number two, that's how you will end up winning in those trades. Talking about being patient as well for waiver wire gems, I just found another season where every time you think the waiver's dry, nothing's going to happen, gets to December, you're like, all right, everyone good is taken. Hartenstein comes up in like January, and I understand that was through an injury, but just be patient. There's always guys, and I just think it's really important to always have faith in that waiver wire. Like, you don't always have to trade for gaps. Someone will come out of that waiver wire, and as Dan mentioned, you don't always have to pick someone that's for your build. You could get someone who's amazing and then trade it for someone, as opposed to forcing a trade early on to fill a build and then maybe over trading someone or getting worse off. So yeah, I guess that was just something, lessons for next year, because sometimes I tend to not be impatient, and I like trading. That's my problem. But yeah, Dan, again, any
You nailed
perspectives
it.
on the waiver wire?
Nothing further. You nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
Okay, that's the first time anyone's told me I've nailed anything like that before, because normally in terms of patience, I'm the last person. So yeah, thanks for that. And don't always sell high. Again, this is just again subjective. You'll win some, lose one, but I always have this obsession with maximizing. And again, I just love trading, I think. And so, for example, when I picked up Hartenstein in one of my leagues, I was over. Like, I was killing rebounds. No one ever touches me in rebounds in that category in that league. And I found I was just like obsessed with trying to trade him. And eventually I was offering really bad trades as well, just because in my mind, he couldn't continue that. Like, because remember that first stretch, he was like 12.5 rebounds, like 1.5 steals, it was ridiculous. I was like, no one's going to continue this, right? But he did. I traded him eventually. I traded him for Kessler, and I guess it worked out because Hartenstein got injured. But if Hartenstein didn't get injured, I would have lost that trade, because Kessler honestly was not great. And you could argue that Kessler had a bad season. No one could predict that or whatever. But the point I'm trying to make here is that just because you've got a guy and you think that's unsustainable, maybe just ride out that crazy unsustainable wave, or maybe even just flow them for ridiculous players only, and then see what happens. But don't try and trade them just because you think that they're going to eventually peak and then go down, and then you've wasted that value. So do you suffer from that, Dan, or is it just me that's obsessed with trading, that's trying to maximize
No, I'm
value?
obsessed with trading, and you can ask my league mates that I'm obsessed with trading, but I tend to do it in packages.
trades.
So big time. So if I had a guy like Hartenstein, I'll package him up with another guy and set him out for a guy that I know is going to provide consistent season-long top tier value as well. So I prefer to do a 2-for-1 as opposed to a 1-for-1, because like you said, there could be that risk that you're getting a Walker Kessler who's not actually going to return you any value that's above Hartenstein.
Yeah, it's funny as well. I actually did a 2-for-1. Talking about 2-for-1s, I did Hartenstein and Tari Eason, who was injured at the time, but he was supposed to be coming back for Kessler. So yeah, it's a good point you bring up. Packaging is great. 2-for-1s are hard to pull off, and sometimes you end up losing them. And But yeah, that's a very good point as well. Maybe to spam 2 for 1s, and if it doesn't work out, whatever, you just ride the wave, right? So yeah, that's a very good point. And Dan's actually just joined my league for next year, so I'm very interested. I'm very excited
Oh,
for
I
him to
can't
be there
wait.
because I'm going to be spamming you trades, my friend.
Bring it on. I can't wait.
So continuing on, we have the top 5 picks. This is the last slide for this video, and this is just a bit of a look forward, going forward into next season, which we're all excited for. So I've got my top 5 here. Dan, yeah, I guess, yeah, dissect it, destroy it, whatever you want, but let me know what you think.
Yeah, I can't argue with any of those. Halliburton, yeah, since he came back from injury, he hasn't been the same guy, but I think Halliburton at 5 is still a solid pick, and I would take him over Embiid. And we spoke about Embiid. Although he's a per game top 5 guy, probably I think he's top 1. Yeah, he's the number 1 per game guy. You just can't trust his durability. So Halliburton at 5, I think is a very solid pick. You've got Wemby at 1, and if this is your order, I like
Yes,
it. I like Wemby at 1, and I'm
I
all
really
in on
like
Wemby
Wemby.
at 1. I
Yep.
would perhaps consider Jokic at 2, just because, again, he is proven, but SGA has been tremendous this season as well. So can't argue with SGA at 2 and Jokic at 3. It's a very solid top 3. And Doncic, actually, we talk about his free throws hurting you. He's actually been much improved this season as well. But
Has
Doncic
he?
at
I
4
need
is,
to, yeah,
yeah,
look at
look,
that. Let's see. He's at 78% this year on nearly 9 attempts a game.
yeah,
So
it's the volume that does kill you, but the 78 is actually, it's nice.
it's
But
not a
again,
game changer. Yeah.
it's not a game changer, and he's getting better as well. So that top 5, very solid, and I like it, and I cannot argue with any of those picks.
Do you agree with the sequence, or are your? Actually, no. You said SGA and Jokic. I think you switched around, but the rest you agreed with, did you?
Possibly,
Yeah.
possibly. I'm not totally against SGA at 2, but possibly Jokic at 2. A lot would still have Jokic at 1 just because he is so proven. But that upside of Wemby, and like you said in this slide, he can single-handedly win you blocks, and that's extremely rare in this day and age that anyone can
Yeah.
win you one category by themselves. But he's more than just a blocks guy, and we've seen
Yeah.
that, and he's just exciting to have in your team.
And I think the one thing, I didn't have Wemby, but Dan, you had the pleasure of having him. It's the growth. Like, he'll go through a stretch where he's like, all right, got crazy turnovers or whatever. But then he went through stretches this year. So the first half he was scoring a lot and rebounding a lot and having some crazy plays. Then you saw the blocks starting to come. But then you saw the assists starting to come. And then I saw even the points start to come a little bit harder. So he's clearly finding, I just think he's improving massively, and that's his own personal growth. I think that you give him an off season now, and the fact that he understands the lay of the land a lot more and everything, I think he's, in my opinion, number 1. His ceiling is number 1, but I just think he'll actually get close to matching his ceiling. But
And
again, if you get
oh, sorry, I was just going to say, you talk about his
No, no,
assist
go ahead.
rate. He had a matchup the other day with Jokic, and it was great to watch as well.
That was
Number
an
one,
amazing game, yeah.
It's a great game. San Antonio got up as well. So your Denver prediction for the chip.
Oh yeah, they're gonna finish 3 now.
No.
Yeah.
But Wemby just looked sensational, and I think he had a stretch there. In 3 minutes, he scored 17 points, and that's just an unbelievable offensive output from just such a superstar of this league as well. So if you can carry that across, there's just no one like him, and that's why I'm going for Wemby at number 1.
Yeah, and in post All-Star break, he's gone from 28 minutes to 32 minutes a game. He's averaged 23 points, 12 rebounds, and he's averaged assists went up from 3 in pre All-Star at 28 minutes a game to 5 at post All-Star. And again, this is with a lot of other ball handlers on the team. So you can imagine in that system as well, where they're very high scoring, and they've been high scoring for the last few seasons. He's going to, I think, get at least 5 or 3. And there was only about 6 guys. I did a video on this in terms of centers who averaged more than 5 assists a game. So there was Sabonis, Jokic, Embiid, who's only just over 5, and that was, I think, the Nick Nurse effect. And who else was there? I feel like there's one more. And then there was Wemby as well. So at 5.3 in just the post All-Star break. So in terms of centers as well that give you assists, it's very rare. Like, you're looking at like 4 or 5 guys maximum, and he's probably going to improve on that. Like in April, in 5 games, he's averaged nearly 7 assists a game with 5.6 blocks. Like, that is, I don't care. You can't, like, I don't care how much SGA carries you in free throws. I don't care how Jokic is. This guy is just insane. Like, what you get from that is unbelievable, especially from that center spot, which we all know is very hard to get any sort of stats except for, the field goal, rebound, blocks, and things like that. So,
And I know we're fangirling at the moment, but also think in the future, San Antonio will need to upgrade their point guard as well. Trey Jones, serviceable. Jeremy Sohan was starting at the one earlier in the season
Yeah,
as
that
well.
was horrible.
Quickly transitioned, yeah, and it didn't help
Don't know.
Wemby.
Yeah,
Wemby improving in the second or the back half of the season. It's no coincidence that Trey Jones, a true point guard, was able to help there, get him some easier buckets as well. So if they get someone, perhaps during the trade
wow, I
period,
never thought about that. Yeah.
if they could get a real elite point guard that would really help him just get those easy baskets as well, that's just another string to his bow.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I didn't even think about them trading. They haven't made any big trades for a while, or even semi-decent trades. So yeah, that is something that's going to change, and they will improve their roster this season. I personally think you brought up a point as well around will they tank again? I don't think they will. I think that they're going to actually try and make playoffs, and I think they will make playoffs next season. And I think when I say make playoffs as well, I don't think they're going to finish like top 3 or anything, but they'll probably sneak in like 8, 7, 6 or something like that, or make even the play-in. But I think they're going to put a push this season because I think Wemby's not interested in sitting there tanking or learning slow. I think he wants to win, and he wants to win now. And yeah, you're right. Even small that roster is not great. Let's be honest. No disrespect to their players, but they can easily improve massively, and I think that's going to help Wemby even more. So very good point. So, but again, you get, and this is just top 5 picks. You get any of these guys, you're pretty much guaranteed playoffs, in my opinion. If you don't make playoffs with all these guys, I don't know what to say. Like that's especially top 3. If you have SJ, Jokic, or Wemby, and they play all their games or most of their games, and you're not making playoffs, I don't know what to say.
Something's
made a lot of sense.
yeah.
Maybe Doncic and Hallie. I think those top 3 those stand up because they pretty much don't hurt you in much. SGA doesn't give you threes, and Jokic, I think 3 turnovers a game is probably it. So yeah, but all right. Well, thanks very much for chatting. That was the end of the slides, I guess. Just as a final note, is there anything else that you noticed or that I didn't mention that you wanted to, that's worth mentioning, I guess, for the people watching?
I think for anyone watching for next season, just bear in mind, if you do happen to go into silly season and your commissioner hasn't changed when your playoffs start and end, just bear in mind that your guys that you've drafted or you've picked up and they've done fantastic for you, don't be glued to them, don't be married to them. Be okay to drop them for those crazy silly season champions like Kenneth Lofton Jr. or a Scottie Pippen Jr. These guys can actually win you your league as well. So don't be too tied to a player just because they've done well for you throughout the season.
Yeah. Will you be playing in this league again next year, where you're going to go all the way to week 23 or 4?
Probably. I think he's just gone for the ESPN default settings, which it's fine by me, I guess. I'm agile enough to understand who to bring in and who the silly season guys are to help me as well. So it's frustrating. You need to focus a lot, but I won't complain, particularly if I end up winning it. So fingers crossed come tomorrow we've got that chip.
Sounds like you'll be celebrating tomorrow. But I guess, and that's a good thing about following the NBA Fantasy Bible channel, so Dan's channel, because he goes all the way through to the end, whereas I don't have as much stamina, and I finish off at about week 21 in my league. So if you look at the silly season tips, he's definitely a great channel to follow. All round, his channel is amazing to follow. I definitely get a lot of tips as well. So thanks very much for all the effort you put into that channel, and thank you very much for joining me on the video today. It was awesome chatting fantasy hoops. I haven't chatted for about 2 weeks, but we'll definitely do some more videos if you're up for it during the off season. There's plenty to talk about, and can't wait for it. But till the next one, thanks very much, Dan. Appreciate your time. Hope you have an
absolute pleasure.
Good rest of the day.
Yes, you too.